The country should be quaking in its boots. Liz Truss is on the warpath. Liz Truss today, on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, celebrates her anniversary of the encounter she had with Lavrov, that encounter that she doesn't describe as clearly as I'm going to describe it. This was the day when she ridiculed Lavrov to his face and then realized that she didn't know that Rostov-on-Don was actually a Russian city and not a Ukrainian city. She ended up with egg on her face. She tried to play chicken with an experienced and extraordinarily aggressive adversary. She failed, she failed, she failed. And yet she celebrates that anniversary today. And shortly after that, she found herself as Prime Minister. Prime Minister by chance, because of prejudice, because no one else came forward. It's so difficult to explain why anybody thought this person who hadn't done her homework about geography, about basic geography, and was Foreign Secretary, should possibly merit the keys to number 10. So she certainly didn't expect 1 year later to be back on the back benches, having been Foreign Secretary. Her article is one of the whingiest, most boring, most turgid articles I think I've ever ploughed through in any newspaper, certainly not in a newspaper that brands it as some sort of selling point. Why would you brand a Liz Truss article as something that's going to sell your newspaper unless you want to market a soporific? It is quite extraordinary. Daily Telegraph, Sunday Telegraph, sleeping tablets by the inch. So she tells us in this turgid narrative that she has had a lot of soul searching. Well, not enough, I think. She says that she had been warned by her husband, that's her long-suffering husband, that this would be a brutal campaign. She won that campaign. She says she got the mandate of the party. Well, again, complete rubbish. She doesn't quite know what she's talking about. She's picked up the nonsense put out by the media, the same sort of nonsense that says that Mrs. Thatcher was brutal and was herself brutal and inflexible. No, she was extraordinarily flexible. The point was she was flexible because the BBC media put out the idea that she was inflexible, that she was very strong. She had room for manoeuvre because of all that propaganda, because of all that publicity about how strong she was. And Liz Truss, like Mrs. May, tried to emulate the propaganda, tried to emulate the fantasy, and didn't want to listen to anybody. Foolishness. All politics is about listening. And we don't elect a leader. A leader doesn't actually have a mandate in our country. We elect a constituency MP, and it is the media obsession with personality cults that distorts the simple facts and thinks that we are electing Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss, Mrs. May, Boris Johnson, David Cameron. We're not. We're electing our local MP, in my case, Mark Pawsey. Did Liz have a mandate? Yes. Did Sunak have a mandate? Yes. Did Boris have a mandate? Yes, insofar as they were appointed by their party to lead the largest party that has won. She mentions the £6,000 projected energy bill and the benefits to the economy of Kwasi's package. Yes, she actually uses that word package. She doesn't call it prodigious, that's what I say, but she does say that this package was designed to boost growth. And she talks about the mini budget of the 23rd of September. She talks about Kitty Usher and Tony Danker both applauding Kwasi's prodigious package. And then she goes on with the rhetoric about the slights that she has suffered, the treachery from the Treasury, from the OBR. She says, which is more important, the OBR or the Treasury? She blames left-wing economists. She blames President Biden for interfering. She says, oh dear, that she wasn't given a real chance. And then she blames economic orthodoxy. In fact, she blames everybody except for herself. But I find it fascinating that she uses the word economic orthodoxy as something that is wrong. So is she calling herself a heretic? Because that can be the only conclusion that we can draw. I am an economic heretic. I am a heretic, she's saying. So is this article in the Sunday Telegraph, a defence, a confession, or a manifesto? She doesn't seem to know, and that is part of her problem, that Liz Truss comes out with rubbish. She wants to make a statement, she wants to write, she wants to speak, but she doesn't really know what she's saying, she doesn't really know how to do it. If you want to be a politician, one of the things you ought to learn is how to communicate. And how to communicate, the first thing you must learn about when you want to communicate is what is your goal. And Liz Truss doesn't seem to have worked out what her goal is, except that she wants to be heard. She wants to be given a chance. Oh, poor me! Poor me. Well, I don't want to give a chance to a Prime Minister. I want a Prime Minister to take control. And if she can't, she's not going to be a Prime Minister. Well, thank God she's not our Prime Minister now. Thank God. But if it was a choice between two ineffective people, as indeed it was, I know which one I would choose. I would choose Rishi Sunak every time. But Rishi Sunak is a poor choice. The choice. It was Hobson's choice from the very beginning. Why is there not a decent Prime Minister creeping up to stand for election? Why? Because Boris stacked his cabinet with non-entities and he didn't bring forward backbenchers of talent. So what we've got is a very, very small clutch of non-entities from whom to choose the next leader. We need to remember this, because a parliament is not just about the person who leads the government. A parliament is also about a strong opposition. And while the Conservative Party must prepare itself, I think, for opposition, it cannot win the next election. The future Labour government must also encourage a decent opposition as well. A slaughtered Conservative Party is not a recipe for a good government, even by a Labour government. In the same way, much of the disasters that have occurred in the last 20 years have been because the Labour opposition has been weak. A good parliament is about a balance between an enthusiastic and inspired and charismatic government led by strong individuals and balanced by a questioning, decisive and ambitious opposition.